The 4 o'clock Eastern deadline on NFL trade deadline day is come and gone, and with that, the Philadelphia Eagles didn't make any moves. They decide to stand pat, and Howie Roseman doesn't further improve this roster after making that trade for Robert Quinn last week. And despite all of the speculation, despite all of the rumors, the Eagles decide to not make any moves. Now, there were a couple of names that the Eagles were linked to. One of them did include Nyheim Hines of the Indianapolis Colts, a backup running back for Indy, who really wasn't getting any playing time this year under former Eagles offensive coordinator, now the head coach for Indianapolis in Frank Reich. I thought this deal was possible because I didn't think that Hines was really going to have a role moving forward for Indy, so they were going to try to trade him away for some pretty good draft capital, and Nick Sirianni has familiarity with him when he was a coach with Indy, and he only went to the Buffalo Bills, who desperately needed running back help, for Zach Moss and a conditional 6th-round pick. I thought that Howie Roseman could have had Nyheim Hines for about this price tag, maybe even more, because they do have a lot of draft capital at their disposal, does Philadelphia, and Hines is an intriguing player because he's a dual threat back who can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can also return punts, and his production in 72 games played in his career has been pretty solid. He is a backup running back, and that's what I think the Eagles needed. They needed depth behind Miles Sanders because of the injury issues with him, and because Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, they haven't done really anything to really establish themselves as trustworthy options this year behind Sanders, who's having a career year. For Hines, throughout his respective career, 300 carries, more than 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, and an average yards per carry of 4 flat. And from one running back to another, reports out there that the Cleveland Browns wanted a 4th-round pick for Kareem Hunt. That's also a player who would have improved this roster, but I think in not making a trade for Kareem Hunt, Howie Roseman sent a message to the rest of the locker room in saying, I really like the special culture that we have right now. It's a big reason why everybody is confident and comfortable with one another. That's a reason why we're humming through 7 games, and we're a perfect 7-0 as the last undefeated team in the NFL. And a guy like Kareem Hunt has a little bit of baggage with his previous legal issues, but also it's in the final year of his contract, so he would have wanted a lot of carries. And a guy like that maybe doesn't care about the greater good of the team, but when you talk about just the overall player that is Kareem Hunt as a backup to Miles Sanders and a guy who's a good running back, but also a threat with the ball in his hands when getting targeted as a pass-catching option, really is intriguing. But as we know, if the Browns did indeed want a 4th-round pick, that's what the Eagles gave away for Robert Quinn. Now, in 2023, they still have a bunch of draft picks in the canister. And that's why I was a little bit surprised that the Eagles didn't make a move, because they do have draft picks looking ahead this year in 2023, but also in the years after that. That 1st-round pick from New Orleans, they don't give that up for a guy like Alvin Kamara. That was the reported asking price. They also have their own 1st-round pick, a 2nd-round pick, their own 3rd-round pick. They traded that 4th for Quinn, and then they have the 7th from the Vikings and their own pick in the 7th round as well. And also, the Eagles could have taken on a larger contract, because in 2023, the Eagles are 6th in the National Football League in cap space, and that's why Howie Roseman really is the runaway, favorite for Executive of the Year. You look at the team that he's constructed, but also how well they're set up in the future, and that's what good businesses do. They compete, they make money right now, and then in the sporting realm, obviously they win games, but they set themselves up for future success, and that's what Howie Roseman has been able to do and is doing for Philadelphia. My overall takeaway with not making a trade for a running back simply comes down to the health of Miles Sanders. This guy is having a career year this year. He's on pace to have his first season of more than 1,000 rushing yards. He can be a dual threat back if he's asked to do so, even though he's had some issues with drops. But if Miles Sanders goes down, that's when I get concerned about the lack of depth at that running back spot for Philadelphia. If he stays healthy, I'm okay with Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott being those backups, and of course Trey Sermon can also be an option as well. So today's poll question is this, and I want to hear from everybody right now in the comment section. Are you mad the Eagles didn't make a move? Type M for, yeah, I'm mad. I wanted Howie Roseman to bring in a safety, to bring in a running back, to bring in another depth piece, or type U for undefeated because you don't think the Eagles needed to make a move at all. Let me know right now in the comment section. Always like hearing from the Bird Gang. Do want to welcome a brand new sponsor here to Philadelphia Eagles. Now, it is Established Titles. So let me ask you this question. Do you want a plot of land in Scotland? Yes, that's right, a plot of land in Scotland. And in doing so, do you want to help out the environment? If you make a purchase with Established Titles, you get land in Scotland and a tree will be planted somewhere across the world. What is Established Titles? It's a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. It is a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds or lords or ladies in English. And you see the plaque on your screen here? I am now Lord Chase Sr. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number on a private estate in Scotland and an official certificate with a crest. Established Titles plants a tree with every order, and they work with global charities all across the globe. You could officially include the title of Lord or Lady on your credit card, plane tickets, dating profiles, and more. It makes for a great last-minute gift. Can you imagine with the holiday season coming up around the corner that you tell your mom, you tell your dad, a friend or family member that you have them a plot of land in Scotland, and with that, you get to help out the world? EstablishedTitles.com/chat. You get 10% off using the promo code chat. We'll put that link in the comment section and the description of this video for all of the Bird Gang out there. Let's go through some of the moves that did transpire on the NFL trade deadline, because there were a lot of notable moves. And growing up, there weren't often transactions made on the NFL trade deadline. Now, it was earlier in the year back in the day. Now it's a little bit later, but also with general managers now in the NFL like Howie Roseman, teams have become a lot more aggressive. One of the bigger moves today was the Minnesota Vikings going all in. They're one of the top teams in the NFC. The Eagles are 7-0. The Vikings only have 1 loss. That 1 loss coming to the Philadelphia Eagles. And we'll get to that TJ Hockenson trade here coming up around the corner. But the Vikings going all in, Eagles, they went all in with Robert Quinn, and I like the fact that teams are being a little bit more aggressive. As for some of my concerns on this current Eagles roster here, and while I was a little bit hoping that Howie Roseman would make a deal, defensive tackle depth depending on the injury to Jordan Davis, backup safety options because Kayvon Wallace is not a good backup, running back depth, and then a punt and kick returner. Another takeaway is the fact that the Eagles did not make a Brian Burns trade, and Brian Burns was not moved at all. Carolina deciding to hold on to him. They hold on to DJ Moore. Brian Burns going to be a name that's linked to Philadelphia if he doesn't sign a contract extension after 2023 as one of the more premier edge rushers in the game. All right, back to those moves that happened and have happened today on NFL trade deadline day. The Detroit Lions getting a 2nd-round pick and a 3rd-round pick, 2023 and 2024, for TJ Hockenson, who's a top 10 tight end in the NFL. So the Vikings go all in by getting another really good weapon for Kirk Cousins. Another big trade. This one happened on, Monday. Roquan Smith going to the Baltimore Ravens from the Chicago Bears. The Bears get a 2nd-round pick, a 5th-round pick, and linebacker A.J. Klein. There was that Kadarius Toney trade last week from the New York Giants to the Kansas City Chiefs. We know former Eagles coach Andy Reid does like to take some chances on players, and he did that with Kadarius Toney, who just fell out of favor with that new regime with the New York Football Giants. The big one for Philadelphia, acquiring Robert Quinn for a 4th-round pick, a depth edge rusher, a guy who had 18.5 sacks last year. He's going to be able to get after the passer given the other pieces along this defensive line and on this defense for Philly. I like the value there for the Birds. The Cowboys got Jonathan Hankins, the Raiders, a 6th-round pick in exchange for that defensive tackle, a 7th-round pick also going to Dallas. James Robinson to the New York Jets. A good running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jags receive a 2023 6th-round pick. That's a conditional selection there. Another big trade that actually happened here on Tuesday. Chase Claypool, who the Eagles took on Sunday, who burned them. And I mean burned them as a rookie a couple of years ago at Heinz Field in Pittsburgh. Justin Fields gets another weapon. And it's much needed because that Bears offense, they lack offensive weapons for their young quarterback. The Steelers get a 2nd-round pick. Another big move in the division here as well is that the Commanders get a 6th-round pick for William Jackson, who was a big acquisition for Washington, but was not a scheme fit at all. Pittsburgh getting a top-tier corner when he's playing well. And then probably the biggest splash of the day, the Miami Dolphins. They like what they see from this roster. They spent a lot of money in NFL free agency, and with that, they make a trade for Bradley Chubb, as well as a 1st-round pick in 2023, a 4th-round pick in 2024, and Chase Edmonds going to the Denver Broncos, a 5th-round pick going to Miami as well. A lot of the picks going to Denver are the draft picks that the 49ers had sent Miami in exchange for the opportunity to move up for Trey Lance. A minor trade here on the periphery of both of these rosters for the Dolphins and the 49ers is that Jeff Wilson is going to Miami. They needed a running back badly, and Jeff Wilson has familiarity with their head coach and Mike McDaniel. He was a former offensive coordinator under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco. He's been with them for the last several years. Now Wilson, who kind of became expendable after the Niners traded for Christian McCaffrey, links back up with his former OC, Jeff Wilson, to the Miami Dolphins. Another surprising one, Calvin Ridley, who's suspended this year for betting on the game of football. Dougie P putting his stones on the table, getting Trevor Lawrence, a legit wide receiver, when this guy is actually on the field and not breaking rules, even though I did think the rule breaking was a little bit phony there. Falcons receiving future draft picks for a player who's so talented when he's right, so talented when he's healthy, has that familiarity with Jalen Hurts, but obviously he's run into injury issues, mental health issues, and then had that betting scandal. That's why he's suspended for all of 2022. Broncos pretty active today. They also got Jacob Martin, defensive end, used to go to Temple University. T for Temple U. Jets receive a 2024 4th-round pick. And then Nyheim Hines. This is the player that a lot of people wanted, and we talked about a little bit earlier on the show. Nyheim Hines to the Bills for a 6th-round pick in Zach Moss. How he could have made this trade if he really wanted to. Honestly, he could have gotten Nyheim Hines as a backup option. Why I also liked Hines, a punt returner as well, and Brenton Covey really hasn't moved the needle all that much, in my opinion, at that punt returner spot. And then a couple of these moves coming in after the deadline, very similar to the NBA trade deadline. Rashad Fenton from the Chiefs to the Falcons for a conditional 7th. And then the Bills receiving Dean Marlowe for a 2023 7th-round pick. That's going to the Atlanta Falcons there. So those are the moves that happened throughout the NFL trade deadline, and a lot of entertainment that did ensue. But the one constant, Philadelphia not doing anything. I can imagine that Howie Roseman was working the phones, but at the end of the day, decides to not make a move outside of Robert Quinn last week. If you made it this far and you're subscribed to Philadelphia Eagles Now, this is what I want you to do right now. It's a real one roll call. As always, we appreciate everybody for supporting the show. And if you're subscribed and you watch this long, type real one, because we appreciate you just like you appreciate us.